Enriched yeast dough flavored with warm holiday spices, dotted with dried fruit, topped with a sweet cross made of dough, and brushed with a warm, sweet glaze. It's the Easter season for the British hot cross buns. These buns are full of legends, superstitions, and a history with royal decrees and religious meaning. Buns marked with crosses are thought to date back to as early as the 6th century in Greece. The modern British version is documented to have been eaten in the 16th and 17th centuries to celebrate Good Friday. In the late 16th century, Queen Elizabeth I of England considered hot cross buns so sacred, she banned the baking and consumption of them outside of Christmas, Easter, or funerals. Such interesting history and significance for the season. Many thanks to the British for inspiring my recipe using their special mixed spice ingredient. For the ingredients, you'll need yeast, granulated sugar, milk, bread flour, salt, cinnamon, mixed spice. This is a traditional British blend. You can see my recipe below the video in the description for making your own at home. Egg, orange and lemon zests, butter, dried fruit, and a little all-purpose flour. So let's start by making the dough by activating the yeast first. We're going to, in a bowl, add 2 1/4 teaspoons, which is 1 package of yeast. To that, we're going to go ahead and measure out the sugar that we need for the dough, which is 50 grams, 1/4 cup. From that, we're going to take 1 tablespoon, give it a quick little mix, and then we're going to add 125 milliliters, which is 1/2 cup of milk. And I heated my milk in the microwave for 30 seconds, and it's just the right amount of heat to get it at that 100 to 110 degrees. And then we're going to set this aside for 10 minutes to activate to become bubbly and frothy. We're going to soak the dried fruit to plump them for a fresh texture. So you're going to need 150 grams, which is about 1 1/4 cups of dried fruit in a bowl. Traditionally, sultanas, which are white grapes, and that's what I have here, and currants. I'm using dried cranberries in sultanas, but I've also used regular raisins. You can use dried apricots, peaches, whatever, just make sure it's chopped up. Then you're gonna pour hot to boiling water over the fruit to cover, and then we're gonna let this sit for 10 minutes to hydrate. In the bowl of a stand mixer, we're going to sift together 450 grams of bread flour, and this is comparable to about 3 3/4 of a cup. Just make sure that you fluff, scoop, and level off your flour if you're using a measuring cup. We're gonna add 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I'm using salted butter, so I'm going with 1/2 teaspoon. If you're using unsalted butter, use a teaspoon. We're gonna add the remaining sugar, granulated sugar. And then we're going to add 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, and then 1 1/2 teaspoons of mixed spice. Now, mixed spice you can sub with pumpkin or apple spice, and then we're just going to sift all this into the bowl, right? If you want the recipe for a British spice mix, check this recipe below in the description, and I will have that there for you. Once you get all the spices in there, let's just do a quick little whisk. There is a thought that the spices of the dough represent the spices that might have been used to anoint the body or that of Christ prior to burial. So now we're going to add the zest of 1 large orange and 1 large lemon, and that's about 1 tablespoon of each. I like to think the contrasting sweet fruit and the bitterness of the zests represent sort of that bittersweetness of Jesus' sacrifice on the cross. Okay, go ahead and attach your bowl to the stand mixer. As an aside, you don't have to use a stand mixer. You can do this by hand using a spatula in a large bowl. And when it comes to kneading, just use your hands. So once you have your mixer attached, then we're going to use the dough hook and put it on low speed. Check out how much our yeast mixture has blossomed and bloomed. Okay, we're gonna pour that in slowly while the mixture is running low. We're gonna pour in another 125 milliliters of milk, which is 1/2 cup. And this was heated again to 100 to 110 degrees. And then we're gonna add in an egg. Okay, while this is mixing up nicely, we're gonna add in 50 grams, which is about 3 1/2 tablespoons of softened butter. We're gonna let this run for 5 minutes and knead. You want to stop periodically and scrape down that bowl edges, but 5 minutes until your dough is smooth and elastic. Okay, it's not too sticky, it's not too dry, it's pulled away from the bowl. Our fruit's been hydrating for 10 minutes now, so it's ready to add it to our dough. I love the pretty sultanas with the red cranberries. I think that'll be nice contrast in our bread. So then you just want to pat your fruit lightly to dry it. Okay, I'm going to add all the fruit all at once to the bowl, and then we're going to let it knead for another 3 to 5 minutes till the fruit is well incorporated into the dough. Okay, let's take a look. Now I adjusted my speed off and on during those 3 to 5 minutes to ensure that my fruit mixed in. If you have a lot of fruit still hanging out at the bottom of your bowl, then just take your hands and knead it in just a little bit more. If you weren't using a stand mixer, then you should have just been kneading by hand the whole time. All right, you can just leave your dough in the bowl that you mixed it in. I'm going to transfer mine. I just want to be able to see it through that glass bowl for this particular loaf. Use a little bit of oil, maybe some cooking spray, and sometimes with my doughs, I like to spray them with oil on the tops and just the sides, because if they're going to be sitting for a bit, sometimes they can develop a little bit of crust on them, and I just want to make sure this dough stays moist. Cover it with a sheet of plastic wrap or towel or both, and then sit it in a warm area. It'll take an hour for it to rise and double in size. This is a pretty quick rising dough. Near the end of the rise, you want to prepare your baking sheet. I'm using a 17 by 12 inch cookie sheet, and just line it with parchment paper and set it aside. Dough has risen really well. This actually only took about 45 minutes. Go ahead and flour your work surface. Pull the dough out of our bowl. Okay, go ahead and shape it into a log. We're not going to do any kneading here. If you have any of those dried fruit that pop out, just put it back in. Oh, I can smell. This smells like holiday. I can smell the zests. I can smell the spices. Just shape your dough into a log, and we're going to cut about 12 relatively equal pieces. So the easiest way, you can eyeball it, you can also weigh it. Your weight will be between 85 and 87 grams. Cut it in half, and then cut it in half again, each side. And then you're going to get 3 from each quarter, and that'll give us 12. You're going to roll them into a nice round ball. So I like to sort of gather them up so that they're kind of round at the top, but then a little bit of crease at the bottom. And then take your hand, cup your hand, and then you're going to press the ball down as you roll toward you like this, and you see the ball moving. If your surface is floured too much, it may not move as well. But the idea is to stretch the dough so that it creates a nice round ball, particularly on the top. So you see how nice and round that is. That's what each of them should look like. And if you've got a little bit of creasing going on at the bottom, don't worry about that. A little bit of gaping, it's not going to worry when it's rising and it's baking in the oven. But just make sure you get it nice and smooth on top. And then you're going to place them on a cookie sheet. I can get these 4 rows down and 3 rows across. You don't want them touching, but they will rise, and they should almost double in size as they're rising. But at this point, make sure that you've got plenty of space between each one. And you're going to do this for all of your rolls. Make a nice round at the top. Cup your hand, pull the dough towards you. Till you get a nice round ball. All 12 buns are on their cookie sheet. Notice there's plenty of space in between them. We're going to cover them. You can use a towel or plastic wrap, and we're going to put them in a warm area to rise, and they'll take about 45 minutes to an hour, and they should almost double in size. At the end of the rise, go ahead and preheat your oven to 425 degrees. And now we're going to make the cross paste. This is that cross that you see on top of the hot cross, hence the name buns. We're going to add 4 tablespoons, which is 40 grams of all-purpose flour. Whatever flour you have should be fine. To that, we're going to add 1 tablespoon of granulated sugar, and I do like to use super fine sugar in my recipes. You can just take your granulated sugar and then pulverize it in a food processor, and the reason for that is just that it melts really quickly and dissolves easily. And then we're going to whisk in 2 tablespoons of water, and again, we're just making a paste. So whisk it until smooth. You can add more water if you need to get that smooth paste that we're looking for. Okay, I moved to a fork just so I can make sure I can thin it out, see exactly where I wanted it. That's about the consistency that we're looking for, because we need to pipe it on top of the rolls. It needs to be thin enough to pipe out and thick enough to stay on the rolls. So now we're going to put it in a piping bag. I don't have a piping bag. I'm just going to use a glass and then just a regular quart-sized bag. Put the corner of your bag at the bottom of the glass. Fold the top over so that you create a nice opening to place your paste. And then just scoop your paste into the piping bag, preferably on that corner so it'll be easy to squeeze out. Cup just allows everything to keep the mixture upright and has it in position where we're ready to squeeze it out when it's time. Okay, let's take a look at our rolls. They've increased in size. We've got one touching over here. I think I might move that just a little bit. So if you're using a regular piping bag, then you just need to make sure you're using a thin tip. And you do not need a large hole here. This is supposed to be a thin cross, about 1/8 of an inch. And then you're just going to cross. The cross up top represents a crucifix in Christianity. So as legends go, the cross was thought to ward off evil spirits, provide protection for long voyages, and solidify friendships when shared. And don't forget, the cross protects the baker from horrible disasters in the kitchen. So it's like our lucky charm. All right, now that these are ready, we're gonna bake these in the oven for 20 to 25 minutes or until golden brown. So while the buns are baking, we're gonna make the finishing glaze. So I have in a small bowl, and I'm gonna microwave this. You could put this over the stove if you want in a saucepan, but in a microwavable safe bowl for the microwave, I have 2 tablespoons of sugar. This is 25 grams. I'm gonna add 30 milliliters of milk, which is 2 tablespoons, and I'm just gonna do a little whisk. I'm gonna microwave this for 30 seconds and stir, and it should be nice and warm, and the heat should dissolve the sugar. Once heated, just stir well and then set aside until we're ready for it. Hey, buns are just out of the oven. Yeah, they look pretty nice. Most of them didn't touch. I've got these 2 over here. We'll just separate them right now. Oh, they smell wonderfully. If you don't have great piping and it's a little too thick, that's what it's gonna look like. It just kind of looks off a little bit. This one was a really nice, looks like it's got really good piping cross right there. We want to add the glaze while they're still hot. So basically we're just going to brush it on, and this is what's going to make them shiny and give them a little bit of a topping. So on the tops and the sides have a nice sweet stickiness to them. Okay, notice what they look like once they've been glazed. They have a nice shine to them. They look really pretty. So you pretty much use all the glaze. There's not really any left over. You can go ahead and slice them in half. Serve them warm with butter. Okay, let's break into one of these. I'm just going to cut it so you can see all the way from top to bottom. They're nice and brown on the bottom. You can still see the dried fruit dotted throughout. It has a nice crumb. I can see the orange and yellow zests in there. We have the golden raisins, and then we have the craisins. The brown that's the spices that you're looking at. That's what you're seeing there. Mixed spice is a combination of pumpkin and apple spice, but the addition is mace and coriander, and you're not going to find those 2 in pumpkin and apple traditionally. So that's what makes this a little bit special. But this is a great looking bread. Okay, notice that crumb. It's very, very nice. Oh, it smells like holidays. Great bread to try if you're looking for a different bun to make, particularly for Easter or on Christmas. While there is much history and religious significance with these buns, whether you're religious or not, or a Christian or not, these buns are just a good tasting yeast bread. Today they are baked and eaten any time of year and for any occasion. I truly hope you enjoy these buns as much as we do. Thanks for watching. Your support really means a lot. Until next time, go bake the world.